And we are live. Great. So today I'm super happy to be here with Cyrus Fazel of SwissBorg. And yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. We met so many years ago. I remember at the CEO Collaboration Day in Zurich where you came over, and um, that was like super early on. And I still remember that session. And now things are very different at SwissBorg. SwissBorg is a very different place, and I'm super excited to talk to you today and dive a little bit into the story and your experience and perspective on things. And yeah, so maybe just to get started, you can, I'd love for you to say a couple of words about yourself. And then I have quite a few questions for you.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Daniel, to invite me to the show. And yeah, I'm very grateful to be here. And yeah, for people who don't know me, my name is Cyrus Fazel, as explained, the proud founder and CEO of Swissborg, always here to serve you guys. And well, in few words, I always say I'm a nouveau pauvre. I was born with Iranian and Swiss heritage, family that lost all. And after joining the wealth management era of 2007, worked there in the hedge fund industry as well for a little bit less than 10 years, and started to realize that financial freedom should not be only for the few. Financial freedom actually and wealth management should actually be given to anyone within this beautiful planet. And I got to understand more the technology of blockchain and the vision of Web3, and then I truly understood what was the real definition of a millionaire, which is helping a million people and not just having $1 million on his on his bank account. Yeah, so that's it.
Thanks for the intro. Really appreciate that. Cool. So let's dive in and let's just go deep from moment zero. So I'm just like curious, like if you had to sum up your essence in just one word, what would that word be and why?
Yes, someone that truly wants to understand its purpose and wants to share it and help the others to grow with it and build, for example, this financial freedom, which I was talking about just earlier. I think so. That's really what I've always been trying to achieve is how would the community go along not a fun ride, but a very beautiful ride of rain, snow, and warm and all these different seasons that enables to test yourself to get to be at a better place and a better stage, and eventually get to your mission. Um, and that's pretty much what I've always been trying to do. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Let's talk a little bit about success. I'm just very curious about your perspective on that. So, success is many things to many people, and I'm curious, like, what is your personal definition of success?
Yeah, I think so. Success, it goes same to I think so the question before, which is how do you make sure that your community is successful? That's success. Is success never based on yourself. It's based on the others. If you only look success from your own mirror, then at the end there's no success and there's no one to essentially party with and enjoy that success. So I think so. It's all about the team and the community that you try to bring to a destination, and that's for me the most, yeah, enjoying one and the one that probably has the highest reward.
I love that. Success is not about you; it's about others. I really love that. The way you put it there. Cool. So let's dive a little bit more into decision making. Like, there's simple decisions, there's more complicated decisions, there's easy decisions, there's hard decisions. I'm curious, if you look back over your career so far and over your journey, what would you say was one of the most difficult decisions that you ever had to make?
The easiest one was definitely to quit the regular financial, traditional financial industry. That's for sure. The most difficult one was probably, I think so, like most founders or CEOs, is when you have to let go people, especially the people that you really love. And I had to, fire very good friends, family members. And those are the moments that, there's two things out there. The first is that your emotional stage is very hard to let people go. And the second is to really do it. And 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 very often the people that you let go is rather it's unfortunate, or most of the time it's unfortunate, but there's probably a bigger reason. And to understand that reason is that, I've been fired many times in my life, and it's amazing. I always was very grateful eventually to get fired, because I was rather not happy. I was not doing the job that I wanted, and I didn't find my passion or the mission that was in it, and I was probably doing something for the wrong reason, right? So I think so those are the hardest decisions. But if you zoom out and you look at your career a few years ahead, you usually think like, actually, that was a great decision, enabled me to realize this and that, and then to go to knock on the next door, or to eventually build your own company enterprise behind it. So yeah, I think so that those are the hard decisions, but then they're very valuable. I hope at least they're valuable for people.
Thanks for sharing. I really appreciate that perspective, and I can fully agree. Like in the moment, it's incredibly difficult, probably for both sides. But usually there is a bigger reason, I would say. Maybe not always, but usually there is, and sometimes it's difficult to see that right away. But also, in my experience, things tend to unfold from that. So thanks for sharing that. I want to talk a little bit more about SwissBorg and your journey. Tell me a bit more, like how did all of this get started? How did SwissBorg and you get started?
Yeah, getting back to yourself. I mean, I think so everyone realized quite quickly that, the whenever anyone that has we have hired at Swissborg, 200 people have an interview with me, right? And the interview is very short usually. I mean, depends the position, but usually they're quite short. And I always ask the person the same question right away, is what is your purpose, Daniel? And if I ask you this question, what's your purpose, Daniel, by the way?
For me,
Yeah,
I
go
mean,
for it.
my purpose is really to connect, you know, or be a connector in the Swiss ecosystem when it comes to innovation, entrepreneurship, growth, um, digital. To me, it's basically being that bridge and being the connector, and that's probably part of like, or that's on the one side who I am, and on the other side why I do what I do. So maybe to sum it up, that's pretty much it.
Perfect. That was very well, and this was not studied, by the way, guys. It's completely improv. So well done to you, Daniel. Um, I think so. At a certain stage, a man usually, at 35 or maybe later or maybe earlier for those, or they understand their purpose. When you're young, your first job is quite under hard. So what I've seen is people that are under 30, especially men, usually always say the same thing. I want to be happy, right? Women sometimes already have a purpose. It's funny to see that women usually have a few years ahead in terms of mindset of on men. Um, but then starting 30-ish, depending how mature you are, you start to realize, you know, what you want to do, and what do you want to change, especially. And going back to the first question, I really wanted to make a massive change into the wealth management game, because if I was continuing to do my job, which is servicing wealthy people, which is great, it's a great thing, but it's not of something that really democratizes and helps to build a world that's more equal. Essentially, what you're doing, you're filling in generations and families of people that will eventually have the super rich, and then the rest of the population. And we've seen that the inequality of wealth gap is just growing every day. And then I realized as well that in financing, we're never very much fair. It was not transparent. Was not very fun. There's a lot of fun people in the industry, but it was not necessarily fun itself. And that's why a lot of people usually are a little bit like bored about finance. They're like, well, I'd rather spend all my time looking how to buy a cheap TV than actually spending on time of how to have a better retirement plan or whatsoever. And 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 the last is that the community part was very much missing into finance. It's a very much zero sum game, right? It's I win, you lose. And I think so. That was the thing where I said, okay, I need to. Is there something that could change? And like, we looked into. I knew a fair amount of. I mean, I had some Bitcoin. I knew what Bitcoin was about, but I didn't understand what Ethereum was about. And when I got to understand Ethereum, the whole Web3, the decentralized financial applications come to my mind, the way to fundraise, the way to have a token alignment, the way how social media was going to change itself, the way how to keep your data private and be able to have a self-sovereign identity going forward. All these different topics started to come to my mind, and then I realized the decentralization part, which for me was the most beautiful one, the one that started with Napster and then evolved with Emule and all this peer-to-peer culture, right? And that's when I said, okay, let's. Is there a possibility to create a better SwissBorg? Because SwissBorg already existed actually, but didn't have this Web3. It had the mindset of how to create these unique portfolios in an easy way, but didn't have yet the blockchain aspect. And that's when I said, okay, early 2017, maybe in January or February, I said, okay, this Ethereum thing looks super cool. And then the bigger idea was SwissBorg is how to democratize wealth management, well, by making it fun, fair, and community centric. Those are the three parts. And then how do you offer these investment services towards any person uh, that is interested in it, and then how you start to create a community with it, how you create a token that gives governance, how you try to make interactions with that community and grow with that community their wealth, and eventually to be financial independent and to decentralize power. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I love the story. I also didn't know that SwissBorg existed before the blockchain aspect. That's new to me. I didn't know about that. Really interesting. Um, cool. So I want to learn a bit more about the rest of the journey. Right now, we talked about getting started. Now, I really want to address these insights here now, like to the next generation of entrepreneurs, right? And these may be like young entrepreneurs or just simply, entrepreneurs getting started, or maybe entrepreneurs scaling up their company. But like, I want to dive a little bit more into your story or the story of SwissBorg. Tell us a bit more, like step by step. How was the first year? How was the first 2 years? How did they, how did things happen? What happened? And was it a straight line?
No, that never happens like that. If it was, it would suck, right? It's like for me, what is one of the best TV shows in the world? It's Breaking Bad, because it shows how complicated life could become. And that's what makes a great TV show, right? And same for any venture that you do. If everything is easy, then it's not worth fighting for, I think so. And and I think so 2017 was all how to eventually build, decentralized financial applications, and to create our token, do our ICO, and hopefully raise the hard cap of that ICO. We managed to do that, and on January 7th, 2018. So it lasted for a month, and it was amazing. We had 24,000 plus people that participated in our ICO, 149 countries, everyone from the planet essentially got to help and believe in us. I think so. That was really something beautiful. And this was a small amount of people. We didn't have any funding. It was just my capital, maybe some of Anthony's, the co-founder, a bit. But yeah, no one bought into it. Then 24,000 people bought into it. That was quite amazing. 2018, 19, that was the period where we met. It was, yeah, the crypto winter, which was a bit weird, and seeing all these projects falling out, all our token losing 99% of its value, me being portrayed as a evil of the blockchain, potential scammer, and things like that, which was a very unfair judgment. But yeah, So quite hard to go through that 18, 19 and building the application, our main app. Um, 2020, we finally launched our main app, which today is used by over 700,000 users. It's one of the best, I think so, app we have in Europe to buy, sell crypto, to go into staking, to build indexes, to really manage your wealth in a fun and a fair way, and a simple and a safe way too, which is very important. And 2020 was a nice year. 2021 was, a crazy year where we grew so rapidly and made 82 million of revenues, a big amount of profits. And then 2022 was the correction year where everyone blew up, right? We went from Three Arrow Capital scandal to Celsius blow up, all the competitors blowing up in our faces, everyone looking at us saying, these guys are the next one, these guys are the next one. Then things calmed down, of course, and then FTX blew up again. Another one blew up, it was FTX this time. So, yeah, 2022 was a very, very difficult year. But those years you learned so much. And this last 2 weeks, it's just, or this last week at least, it's just been, yeah, a very big amount of I would say of other create big scandals with USDC, SVB banks falling, hacks and more. So it's as I always say, what I love about what we're doing is extremely entertaining. It's something that people should really understand to enjoy those hard times because you need to battle all the time. You need to be someone that is very enthusiastic about the future, but at the same time, you have to be really on guard. You really have to watch out to dodge the bullets all the time. And this makes it, for me, a lot of fun. And when you're having
Yeah.
fun, that's usually a very positive signal.
Yeah, that's one of the things I really appreciate about you, as a founder, and also about SwissBorg, which is kind of like, I mean, we've seen that last year, right, where you know crazy growth got into people's heads, right, and just overtook, or maybe there was no sense of security there after all in the beginning. I don't know, but like it just overtook anything else, and the only thing that was there was like growth, and for the sake of growth, and no matter what, right? And the no matter what is what caught up with people, caught up with those companies, and that's what I love about. I think it's part of your philosophy, and I also like feel like it's part of your being as a human being, of that balance. You're a very visionary person. You're a very optimistic person. You're very futuristic oriented, and at the same time, you're very grounded. You I feel like you don't lose that connection to what's really important. Um, and I think that's also why Swissborg is around, and there's not many players, that I've made such waves that are still around. Um, there's a handful, maybe a couple of handfuls, but yeah, that's really one thing I appreciate a lot. And I want to dive a little bit more into the state of the industry before diving more into some of the more digital topics, digital business topics. But tell me about your perspective on where we stand with. Let me see, where do I want to go with that? I think I really want to talk more about crypto, in terms of like not necessarily the technology, because I think that is something a little bit different, because everything that blew up had nothing to do with the technology whatsoever. It's basically a finance problem, and not a technology problem. So I'm curious more on the financial layer of things, on the crypto layer of things. Where do you feel like we are right now? Is this just like the normal state of an industry that is so young, and like every industry goes through that? Is this something exceptional? What's your perspective on where we are and where we are heading?
It's definitely exceptional because it's very different, right? It's there's no other industry that has went through the same game because there's the financial aspect to it, right? Like the dot-com bubble just happened, but that was like 2 years. This is like already 10 years that there's these massive shift that comes in and out, and it's very retail oriented, which is beautiful. Of course, there's some institutionals and all of that, but let's face it, it's retail. Institutional will back what retail are going for, as easy as that. And of course, there's some VCs and all of that, but again, it's a very much peer-to-peer retail evolution and even maybe revolution. And we see now the last 12, 13 years that there's few applications that have been arrived to quite mass adoption. There's Bitcoin, there's a blockchain technology such as Ethereum that really got to build a lot of applications and a lot of cool users that are in it today. And we got to the ICO era, which was 2017, where a lot of people had a lot of hope. This unfortunately, 99% of those guys are 99.99% of those guys are most of them are not in don't exist anymore. 2020, 2021 is all the DeFi craze, and there was a lot of great things happening, such as Aave, Compound for lending and borrowing, great applications, very financial though. Same for decentralized exchanges as well, which is like Uniswap and SushiSwap, PancakeSwap, whatever these different other dexes. What we've seen as well is a further step from that, a new type of dexes as well, which is on the future side, like DYDX, GMX today. So how to essentially be able to do the same thing but with futures. So we saw a lot of great financial applications, and there's going to be more in there, and 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 obviously there's going to be many other ones that are going to blow up, like Monday, unfortunately, Euler, which was a great one for lending and borrowing. And but that's not fun. Just to make things clear that there's nothing fun. I mean, maybe the name Sushi Swap is fun, but nothing's fun about it, really. It's just exchanging value on internet. So that's not going to create like a revolution in terms of mass adoption, because you need to be technical, and there's problem with infrastructure and this MetaMask and these other addition, infrastructure wallets with the private keys and hacks and a lot of different things that go with that. So we're not going to get to mass adoption for two reasons: infrastructure reason. Second, it is the applications. Now, what are going to be the key applications? We already saw it, by the way. I mean, the only application that had a very big amount of users were video games. And Axie Infinity was the first one, 2021. We saw like OpenSea having more people for NFTs. But NFTs is like ICOs. There's a lot of these NFTs. Most of them will probably die, and it's very speculation driven. And there's very small amount of utilities in these NFTs, besides saying like, oh, I'm part of this cool clan, which is still something great, by the way. I'm not saying not, but there's still not those NFTs that have those real utilities. And where I see now the mass adoption happening is twofold. Is exactly what happened to Web 1 or Web 2 evolution, right? Did PayPal bring a billion people to exchange money? No, it didn't. It brought few people to start paying on internet. But the big evolution happened when mobile happened. So that's infrastructure, and that we need that easy way to get into Web 3. The second is applications, the killer applications, the Facebooks, and all these video games, right? Or porno. But on Web3, there's no so much porno things going on. They tried, but it never really worked, right? So let's focus on more things that I believe in, which is video games and social media. And there has been some cool games, and Axie Infinity brought 30 million users, right? But it was more for farming purposes instead of playing. Uh, and this is really the game changer. So, for example, SwissBorg, we have Xborg. It's a gaming guild. It's really esports into Web3. So how you could create an identity, play these different games, and build your career and your life playing video games. That's really much what it is. And there's getting more and more super cool games around it. And for example, there's Across of the Ages that is really the really 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 cool card game. There's NV, it's a shooting game. So you're going to see more and more of these blockbuster games that will eventually be able to do it on Web3, and you'll be earning money while doing it. So playing for fun and as well making your career out of it. That's going to be a big one for mass adoption in terms of application. And the other is social media. Is Jack Dorsey, the former CEO and founder of Twitter, he's creating his new Blue Sky Twitter, which is completely decentralized. Obviously, Elon Musk is going that direction too with Twitter. From what has been done on social media on Web3, there's been a lot of initiatives that blew up for different reasons. But now there is a Lens protocol that is a super interesting protocol for different YouTubes are decentralized, Twitter, and Instagram, whatever. So these hopefully will bring more people, and we need that infrastructure which enables you to, if you lose your private keys, be able to recuperate your private keys. If you're able to go on the web internet of Web3, you have those antivirus that will protect you and make sure that you're able to transact without taking too much risk. And that's exactly what SwissBorg is actually right now building as well, is how to go from intranet to internet and making it very safe. And I think so that's for me though the two is infrastructure and the killer applications.
I love that, like, infrastructure and the applications and comparing it to like Web 1 and 2 and also like the mobile. I'm curious about gaming. I want to stay there for a second because I'm curious about that because that's one of the things I'm personally very um, I would say very engaged in. Like I've been trying all kinds of blockchain games, from card games to one mobile game, which is pretty cool. I can't remember it was what it was called, but it's really good. Also graphics and everything was an iOS app actually. Um, but like there's this conversation sometimes that I've seen and heard, when it comes to gaming and the gaming world that exists right now, right? And bringing that gaming world onto the blockchain, and on the other side, create like starting with the blockchain and building games on top of that. I mean, that's kind of happening, but I mean, sorry to say, but most of the games are pretty crappy. Like, when it comes to like, if you compare them to the real gaming world, I mean, it's really crappy from a gaming experience perspective, from a visual perspective, and things like that. But that's normal, right? I mean, this is like over here separate. That's a new world, right? But then looking at the existing gaming world, which is huge, it's massive, right? Why, in your perspective, why would this world go to the blockchain? Like, what is like blockchain is the solution, but what is the problem?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we really created Xborg, by the way. 2022, do you know roughly what was the revenues of 2022 for gaming,
In the world,
in the history
like
of gaming?
normal
Yeah,
gaming?
yeah,
I don't know.
it's massive. $220 billion dollars. Okay. Do you know how much the players have made out of the 220 billion? I think it says 1.2, 1.5. There's more and more gaming guilds that get money out of it. So there's one in Switzerland, for those who probably know, it's BDS. It's our national teams, the best team far away, Geneva based, super cool people. Um, and they for example won the finals of League of Legends recently, and they made like whatever, a lot of money. Then there's people that stream and through Twitch and make some money
Hmm.
through Twitch. FIFA, sorry, in football today, 50% of all the revenues goes to these teams and players. And that's exactly the missing point, is that you can't you cannot just make money on people's playing. You start have to leave them to let them potentially build games and make money and start getting these, like, I was playing on FIFA on my mobile the other day, right? And if I wanted to now get better in FIFA on the mobile, I'm playing against only these guys that have the best teams, right? And they have Cristiano Ronaldo, Pele, and all of that. And I could buy Pele for let's say 20 francs, I think so. I would buy it if it would belong to me, and I'll be able to trade it eventually and all that, right? But that's not the case on Web 2 games. Is whatever you buy essentially, then well, you won't be able to play in FIFA 24, or you won't be able to sell it and all that. And that's the biggest problem, right? Is that nothing belongs to you in these video games. And when you see like Sandbox that's building their metaverse, right now it's more about, just hanging out and showing that this is my cool house and all that. But now if they're starting having more applications where you start playing these video games, you could the axe that you just won belongs to you. That new whatever land that you just won belongs to you, and you can start selling, trading, putting these as a collateral to actually buy a real house in the real world, right? And this is where video game players start realizing like, okay, actually I'm quite a slave to this game, and I'm just not able to live out of it. So it doesn't make sense. And we're seeing with Xborg, for example, what we're doing is we're building their CVs. So whenever like someone earns like a League of Legend or Counter Strike, whatever the game is, they start winning these tournaments. We are giving them NFTs that are Soulbal tokens that will be on chain forever, saying this guy actually really won this competition. She actually was in the final, and all of that. So you start building your resume, and people could be very proud of that. And that's a good way to attract people into Web3. And then, as you said, to build a game, a real game, it takes between 2 to 4 years, and the average is more than 3 to 4 years, right? So that takes time. And there are some good games for now, but yeah, it's just that it takes some time, and unfortunately we'll get there. And there's a lot of new games that are in the pipeline that are going to get better. PlayStation wants to put NFTs in their games. There's a lot of great news about that. Yugu Labs, the guys that mainly control the NFT markets through the Bored Apes and all that, they just essentially acquired the CEO of Blizzard. Blizzard's one of the best gaming company to be CEO of Yugo Labs. So you're seeing more and more traction and great people bringing into the Web3 space. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Just like, a couple of years ago, bankers started to flourish into DeFi and the world of crypto. Now, traditional gaming executives flourish into the blockchain space and the Web3 space. Yeah, it's really. I mean, this is a really interesting era for me. I mean, I'm also personally invested in that area. Come it, maybe infrastructure or games themselves or gaming studios, and I think that's going to be one of the keys for mass adoption because it has these ingredients that are required built in, designed in basically. And I really appreciate that perspective. Like yeah. So one more thing I want to talk about a little bit is the topic of you know digital experience, digital growth. I mean, one of the things I love so much about SwissBorg is the actual experience. To me, like it is like there's lots of exchanges, and I probably use 10, you know, from Binance to KuCoin to SwissBorg to I didn't use FTX, thank God, to many others, and just SwissBorg is, I mean, it's just state of the art, and it's like it's on the one side it has this gamified aspect of like it's really enjoyable, right? And it's, of course, because it's also built into your core values, but it's really enjoyable to use it. I mean, using Binance and KuCoin is not enjoyable. It's painful, even though it
It
has a
is,
lot
yeah.
of functionality, but it's pretty painful, honestly. So SwissBorg is really, it's a pleasure to actually use it, which interestingly then of course drives adoption, right? It drives people wanting to use it more because it's enjoyable, it gives a good experience, it gives joy, it gives a good feeling. And I'm curious about like how did you land there? Like, did you just hire the best designers and UX people in the world, or work with the world's best agencies, or how did you land there?
First, thank you very much. And sorry, I have to go get the charger. I think so. I'm running out of battery. I think
No
so.
worries.
There's a lot of answers to this one. Um, the first is culture, I would say, which is fair, but on the same time unfair. Is if you look at SBB app, for example. Sorry for those who don't know SBB. It's our national. Uh, I don't know if it's train or all transportation actually SBB, or it's
Yeah,
only the train. No, it's only the
transportation
train.
based. Yeah.
Transportation essentially. Their app is super cool. It's super well done. I think so. In Switzerland, we
Thank you.
have
I
this.
appreciate that. I don't know if you know, but we actually designed the not the new one, but the version a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah. Oh well, there you go. Well, I didn't know that. No, I didn't. So again, this is improvised. I mean, I think so. In general, we in Switzerland we like doing things that are to some extent quite minimal and simple, and that work very well. It's just the culture. It's just from a church to an app. It's the same thing. It's you don't need to put too much colors and everything, and I think so. Apple has done this very well, which is definitely not Swiss, but they understood that, and so I think so. That's the first thing. Second is that we started with mobile app. And when you start with a mobile app, you have a very different mindset as well. It's the screen is much smaller, the possibilities are much smaller there too, and therefore, well, you have to really start thinking very well. The third is we had a Swiss German UX guy. That is Jack. That's a master. He's amazing at user experience, but as well user interfaces as well, and the whole team that backs it. He's been very very yeah, not only good, but very demanding how to really always try to think and be innovative and not take too much risk too much either. I think so in some way. So I think so that was it. And then last but not least, which is most important, we really wanted to democratize something. And if you make things very flashy and all crazy and all that, and crypto is already quite nerve breaking to some extent. If you put too much of these things, it doesn't look good. And yeah, we're very glad that today we have I think so. It's like 2% of our users are, or wait, is that correct? No, maybe less. Anyway, we have roughly 100 users per month that come onto our app. Half of them are able to deposit, I mean, all of them are able to deposit Swiss francs, GBP, whatever, euros, and convert them into Ether, Bitcoin, SwissBorg tokens, whatever. And then half of these people are able to put them into staking and to yield. You know how old these guys are, Danielle? It's a very
No
small
idea.
cohort. They're over 80 years old, and so 80 and plus. And first, I was quite worried. I was like, oh shoot, people are getting potentially hacked or whatever, or using these fake IDs or something like that. So we started interviewing these people, and they told us like, well, it's me. It's not my children. It's my grandchildren that want to inherit crypto, not Nestle shares, and this is the future. So I want to be part, at least get my legacy for the future. And then we asked them, they're like, how do you use the app? They're like, well, at first they show me how it works, but to be honest, it's not that complicated. I could get to look at it. I read your emails. I'm able to trade. I'm like, oh, that's super cool. So
That is
yeah, we tried.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important, I think, so is to remove that barrier, because if not, well, you're gonna get just techies or people that are young that will use your app. Yeah.
Just like last point on that, I love because with what you just mentioned, like, and also SPB, like, I think a big challenge in all of this is kind of like the SPB app is for everyone and anyone, right? So who's your target group? everyone and anyone. And you know, in what you just mentioned, basically with SwissBorg, at the end of the day, if you're on the track for mass adoption, who's your ultimate user group? Pretty much anyone and everyone, right? From 85 years old to 19 and everything in between, and then you know, horizontally and vertically everything. And how do you make that experience truly stand out? And I love what you mentioned there. It's kind of like there's only really one key, which is simplicity, because everything else is confusing and just adding to the chaos and just adding another variable in this sea of variables. So I really appreciate sharing that. Last question I have for you is like ways out in the future. Let's imagine you're 80 years old now and you're sitting outside in your mountain house and the terrace, and you're looking back at your life, and you're looking at everything that has changed. At that point in time, what would you love to see in the world that has changed?
First thing is to make sure that democracy really does exist. Um, that what we've built in Switzerland is we're able to replicate it elsewhere. I think so. That's the number one thing I would like to see. Obviously, I would like to see that the planet's still green, and yeah, I'll probably like to see as well what happened on my personal wallet, because I think so. The great thing about what's blockchain is at the end it's a ledger. It's your personal ledger of your whole life, and enable you to see what you've invested in, what you've sold, what you've participated in as a vote, what initiatives you proposed, what games you played, what NFTs you collected, what rewards did you get. And I look through it and be proud of myself of doing a lot of right things within that. But for sure, having a democracy, a decentralized world as well, making sure that there's not one just big giant tech company that owns us, and yeah, I think so. Those four things for me are very important.
Thanks for sharing, Cyrus. Really appreciate it. And thanks for spending the time with us today and sharing all your insights and perspectives. And yeah, it was really cool to catching up again, Cyrus. Thank you for your time, and see you
Thank
soon.
you. Cool.